This is the A7 Pro, which is the highest tier commuter in Himiway's updated lineup. We were really impressed with its ride feel and its performance, but what features had the biggest impact? Let's take a ride and find out. Welcome to Electric Bike Report. I'm John. A couple quick notes before we jump in. First, we want to be your go-to source for e-bike reviews, which is why we do super in-depth testing of every e-bike we get our hands on. So if that sounds good to you, please make sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon. It really does help us to help you. And second, if you find yourself considering this bike at the end of the review, please use our affiliate link down in the video description. We do earn commissions that help us to keep making these reviews, but using that link will not increase your cost. With that out of the way, let's talk about the A7 Pro. I've got to say I was really impressed with Himiway's recent aesthetic change. This bike has a much more polished look than anything that came before it, but there were a handful of other things that stood out to us as well. First, this bike is super comfortable thanks to its full suspension. There's an air fork up front with 120 millimeters of travel. That's the X132 Boost model from SR Suntour. And there's an air shock from DNM on the back with 38 millimeters of travel, and that's the A06. Full suspension commuters like this aren't something we see every day, and the A7 just had a much smoother feel than just about anything with only a suspension fork. But second, I really liked how it felt to pedal. It comes with a custom 500 watt mid-drive motor made by Ananda, and I could tell that the motor had quite a bit of power, but it was balanced really well with the bike's weight and the drivetrain. So it never seemed overpowered, and the ride just felt really natural. Something else kind of related to that point was that the bike felt really solid and stable. That was partly because of the weight, but also thanks to its tires. This bike weighs a little over 74 pounds, and the 27.5-inch Schwalbe Super Moto X tires are 2.4 inches wide, so that keeps it feeling really planted. Honestly, if I closed my eyes, the A7 felt a lot like a fat tire bike, even though it's definitely a commuter, but I think that makes sense with it being a Himiway bike, as they're kind of known for big, powerful fat tire e-bikes. But let's keep moving and run through the rest of the bike's specs. It has a fully integrated but removable 48 volt, 720 watt hour battery in the down tube that uses either Samsung or LG cells. It has a Shimano group set that includes MT200 hydraulic disc brakes with 180 millimeter rotors and 2 piston calipers, as well as the drivetrain. The bike's 44-tooth chainring is made by ProWheel, but the 9-speed cassette and derailleur are part of the Shimano Alibio line. There's a nice comfy saddle from DDK with a quick adjust seat post that has 100 millimeters of travel. And then if we move up to the cockpit, things get really interesting. The bike includes an adjustable stem with an integrated color display, and I think that's a trend we'll be seeing a lot more of in the near future. The low-rise handlebars are 680 millimeters wide with ergonomic rubber grips. There's a rapid-fire trigger shifter, a bell, and a throttle lever mounted on the right handlebar, and then the left bar just has the bike's control panel. In terms of included accessories, the bike comes with a small LED headlight, front and rear fenders, a cargo rack with 55 pounds of carrying capacity, as well as an integrated tail light and brake light. And then there are a couple of cool little extras like bungees for the rack and an Abus cafe wheel lock for short-term security. A few more details to wrap things up. The bike ships as a Class 2 with throttle and pedal assist up to 20 miles per hour, and it can be unlocked to a Class 3 or really anything in between, but you'll need to reach out to Himiway for the access code. The bike comes in 5 color options. We have emerald green, but there's also light gray, green, dark orange, which is really more of a yellow, and finally a black and white gradient. And then the A7 Pro is not currently UL certified, but our contact at Himiway said that that is in progress, so be sure to check their website to see the current status. That should cover everything though, so let's dive into the bike's test results and see how it compares to other commuter e-bikes we've tested. Let's look at our brake test first. We tested the A7 Pro by pedaling up to 20 miles per hour, and then we measured how far the bike traveled while stopping after we hit the brakes. That average distance after 3 separate tests was 22 feet 10 inches, which was a little slower than the average for all other commuters we've tested that used hydraulic disc brakes, but still well within the normal range. At the time of filming, that overall commuter average is 22 feet even. Just going by how good these brakes felt, I was super surprised to see that the test results were a little below average. I thought these brakes felt super strong and effective, and I'd say anything more powerful would probably be overkill. But I think the bike's weight was probably the biggest thing working against it. It's definitely on the heavy side for a commuter. Most weigh anywhere between 50 and 65 pounds, where again, this is about 74. But let's take a second to consider our results for the Himiway Rambler Premium, which is essentially the hardtail version of this bike. The Rambler was lighter, it weighed about 67 pounds, and it used a different set of brakes. The Rambler's average stopping distance was over a foot beyond that of the A7 Pro, and that was still within the safe zone, but Himiway clearly stepped things up on this version of the bike, so we've got to give them kudos for speccing a highly effective set of brakes. Now let's check out the A7 Pro's results in our speed test, where I took it out to the bike paths and rode it in each pedal assist setting. The goal of this test isn't just to determine maximum speed, we want to make sure each of the assist levels feels different. So let's go see how the test went, and then we can see how quickly the throttle accelerates. All right, let's do a speed test on the Himiway A7 Pro. I'm starting off with no pedal assist and a little bit of a headwind here, but we'll see what happens. So I'm going about 11.5 miles per hour or so. Let's go ahead and go up to PAS1. All right, so you hear that mid-drive kick in right away, shifting up. Maybe another gear actually, making a big difference. I mean, let's see, we've got 3.5 miles per hour or so, yeah. All right, so it looks like we're landing around 14.5 miles per hour. Let's go up to PAS2. Feeling more power for sure. Let's go up to 7th gear. You hear there's a little pause in the motor when shifting to help protect that drivetrain. And I'm going kind of between 16.5 and 17 miles per hour. All right, let's go up to PAS3. I'll shift up again, so that's 8th gear now. And let's see. Looks like we're going around 19.5 in this setting. So there's not gonna be a whole lot of room for PAS4 and 5. Let's go ahead and go up to PAS4. All right, so going a little above 20 here. I'll shift up to 9th gear. So we're going around 20.5 miles per hour. And then let's see what happens in PAS5. Not expecting anything since we kind of are at that class 2 limit. So it does feel kind of like a soft limit, like it's not very difficult to pedal above that, but the motor isn't helping me. So I think I got up to around 21 there with just some added leg power. Yeah, all right, we'll call that our speed test, and I'll see how fast the throttle can hit 20 miles per hour. All right, so let's do a throttle acceleration test on the A7 Pro. This has throttle after pedals, so you can see that the throttle doesn't do anything when I hold it down just at a standstill here. So I'll kick off and then hit the throttle once I get moving. So let's do that in 3, 2, 1, go. All right. Picking up pretty quick. 15, 16, 18, 19. And 20. So I kept my level of effort fairly relaxed and consistent in that test, since this bike has a torque sensor that lets the motor adjust its output to match what I was doing. Just keep in mind that your results might differ a little since you probably pedal differently. To recap my results, I hit 11.6 miles per hour with no pedal assist. I mentioned earlier that this bike is relatively heavy, and that was pretty noticeable without the motor, but going up through the 5 pedal assist levels, I reached 14.6 miles per hour in PAS1, 17 in PAS2, 19.8 in PAS3, 20.5 in PAS4, and 21 miles per hour in PAS5. The first few steps in power there were very even and consistent, but then things tapered off a little bit in PAS4 and 5 as I hit the pre-programmed Class 2 limit. This pattern is fairly normal on bikes that ship as Class 2s, but that can be unlocked to higher speeds, and I'd expect things to be much more linear with the max speed set to 28 miles per hour. On that note, we didn't formally test the bike in Class 3 mode since there are some hoops to jump through to get there, but I did try it out. I got the bike up to about 28.5 miles per hour with a little legwork, and the bike handled the speed really well. The throttle was definitely a little punchier than I anticipated based on the balanced feel of the pedal assist, and it's always nice to see a throttle paired with a mid-drive. Unfortunately, the bike can't throttle from a complete stop, and I'd challenge Himiway to correct that in the future just for the sake of user-friendliness and fun. But otherwise, I think the A7 Pro did a great job here considering its Class 2 limitations, and I like the variety of power levels as well as the fact that none of them overpowered my pedaling. Next up is our range test, where we rode the A7 in PAS5 and PAS1 until it ran out of charge to get a minimum and maximum range. Himiway advertises that the bike can go 30 to 50 miles on a single charge, and we were able to go beyond both of those numbers in our tests. In PAS5, we covered 36.5 miles in 2 hours and 16 minutes, so pretty respectable. But the bike did an awesome job in PAS1. We traveled 85.1 miles in 6 hours and 38 minutes, and that puts the A7 firmly in the top 10 when looking at all the commuters we've ever tested. For the record, the average result in our low assist test is 61.3 miles, so this bike had that beat by almost 25 miles. So mid-drives with torque sensors are naturally pretty efficient since they require active pedaling and they can vary their power output. Our testing showed that the A7's motor was 57% more efficient than we expected based only on its specs, so it's able to really make the most out of that battery capacity. Bottom line, this bike is definitely well suited to daily use as a commuter, even if you have a really long ride to work or school. Keep in mind that you'll get fewer miles if you have the max speed set to 28 miles per hour, as you'll be burning more power, but even then I'd bet most commutes would still be covered. Now for our fan favorite, the hill test at Hellhole Trail. Our tester Justin took the A7 Pro up this super steep path with its throttle and with its pedal assist system, so I'm gonna pass you over to him so you can see what happened.
Okay, here we are in the Himiway, and being a mid-drive that has a throttle, I've got us in 4th gear. I think that's usually about the right gear for Hellhole when you're climbing, because that's kind of because the motor's going through the drivetrain. If you try to throttle at 9th up a hill, you're just not going to make it. But this seems pretty good. So, especially given the output. So far, I'm just down to about 8 miles per hour, dropping a little bit, but not too bad. So far, I can't knock on wood, but I don't think this will have necessarily an issue climbing up Hellhole. Through that first steep section, the lowest I got that I saw was about 6.9. Motor sounds pretty nice. I hear the front hub clicking, which is kind of a nice sound. But I also do hear the motor. I'll let you listen to that now. So you hear it pick up right there. So as you can see, you can definitely hear the motor. Louder moments like this when the cadence is higher and it becomes like a higher pitch, versus when you're kind of grinding slowly up a hill. It's a little bit lower on that, on pitch wise. But yeah, this is actually pretty good for a mid-drive motor. A lot of times mid-drives that have throttles struggle a little bit more through here. Part of it's, I think I got the gear right, but part of it's as well, the motor feels pretty powerful. So we'll turn around and see how it does on the pedal. We are back at it now, doing the pedal test. Started right about 6th gear. Feels pretty smooth so far. Right about 12 and a half through this section. 12, 11.6, 10.6, 9.9, 9.8. And again, it is a mid-drive, so I do have to put some wattage down on the pedals to get it to go. Could definitely go faster, but I'm trying to go at a pace where I could talk to someone for, you know, the bike ride, the duration, to give you an idea of how to compare it. So far doing pretty good. Gonna shift going into this here. So felt a little better going up through that section. When I shifted down to 4th gear, you'll notice there was that slight pause as I shifted, where the motor disengages while I shift and then re-engages. This pause, I'd say, it's a little better than some others. Sometimes there's such a pause you lose all your momentum. This, I'm not losing momentum. And they most likely did that to kind of reduce wear on chain when you're shifting under tension, etc. So not bad. Let's see how this did.
Here again, we have another above average result. On throttle, Justin rode up in 1 minute 39 seconds with an average speed of 11 miles per hour. In PAS5, he shaved a few seconds off and finished in 1 minute and 31 seconds at 11.9 miles per hour. Compared to other commuters with mid-drives, both of those results are about 10 seconds faster than average. Realistically, that all comes down to how powerful this motor can be, which we sort of previewed with the punchy throttle in our speed test. But the A7's motor cranks out 130 Newton meters of torque, and going by the controller, up to 1056 watts. Even with the weight of this bike to contend with, that's enough power to make hills an absolute breeze. I took the bike to a secondary location closer to our office to repeat this test, and I totally back up everything Justin said. I thought the A7's motor was a little on the louder side, but that's not unusual. The throttle powered up without a hitch, and even when I was pedaling, I didn't have to put in much effort at all. So to summarize, if you live in a hilly area and you need a powerful bike that can handle it, the A7 Pro definitely has you covered. I've already talked a lot about how good the A7's ride quality was, but let's go back out to the bike paths and revisit a couple things, and then I'll add a few final thoughts back here in the studio. All right, let's talk ride quality here on the A7 Pro. So this is a commuter e-bike with a little bit of a forward lean to the riding position, although that is customizable with the adjustable stem. So where I have that set right now, I have my arms pretty outstretched, putting a little weight on the handlebars, but not too bad, still very comfortable, and gotta say I'm really digging the squishy ergonomic rubber grips. So there's a single frame size for this bike that fits riders from 5'3" up to 6'5", and it has a few points of adjustment to be able to do that. There's between 4.5 and 5 inches of adjustment in saddle height with the seat post, and that has a quick adjust lever. And then with the adjustable stem, of course, you can change your handlebar position and just, you know, generally make it more comfortable. There's a full suspension on this bike, an air fork up front made by SR Suntour with 120 millimeters of travel. So that's quite a bit of cushion for a commuter. And then a rear shock made by DNM with 38 millimeters of travel. And just that combination makes this ride very smooth, very cushy, very comfortable. The tires are made by Schwalbe. They are the Supermoto X tire with, let's see, street tread pattern. They're 27.5 inch by 2.4, and, you know, very wide, very stable tire. So that in combination with the bike's weight just makes this thing feel really solid and stable. And then the motor is a 500 watt mid-drive made in partnership with Ananda. So it has Himiway branding, but it is made by Ananda, and that has 130 Newton meters of torque, and it uses a torque sensor so that it can change its output depending on how hard you pedal. And of course, then you have 5 pedal assist settings with different levels of power, but overall just a really natural, smooth riding experience. So let's wrap it up there and bounce back to the studio and talk a little bit more. So again, comfort and stability were huge aspects of the bike's ride, right up there with the balanced and natural feel of pedaling. In general, I think this bike's handling was predictable and it carried its weight very well. I really liked the clean look of the stem integrated display, but I did find it somewhat difficult to read, both because of its size and also the way I had the adjustable stem angled a little bit more vertically. That display has an IP65 rating against dust and water, but if it does somehow become damaged, you may need to replace the entire stem. And this is definitely nitpicky, but I felt like some of the components on the bike weren't quite up to the same level as the overall finish. Himiway really stepped things up with the paint job, the display, the custom motor with their own branding, and a lot of the major components on the bike, but some little things like the headlight and the control panel felt kind of plasticky and tacked on. Overall though, I can't really complain. I think they generally knocked this one out of the park, and I had a really great time riding and testing this thing. I've got to say, I was really stoked to check out the A7 Pro. I got my first look at it at this year's Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. Before this year, I thought Himiway was doing a decent job, but I think their current generation, including the A7 Pro, was really a big step forward. I think some of that can just be seen visually. This bike looks great, but it also showed up on the spec sheet and in our test results. The A7 Pro had above average performance in 3 of its 4 tests, with probably the most impressive results in the range test. But even in the brake test, where it looked a little behind by the numbers, I think the reality of how it felt was both better and more accurate. There were a couple of minor areas for improvement, with the most significant being the type of throttle and the quality and feel of some of the trim features. Those are nitpicky for sure, but I do encourage Himiway to keep improving in the future. They're definitely on the right path though, so I'm happy to recommend this bike for anyone who wants something fun, powerful, comfortable, and also capable of really long rides. As a reminder, if you decide to make a purchase, please use our affiliate link in the video description, and there's another link to our written review there as well. Please also give this video a like if you found it helpful. Don't forget to subscribe, and feel free to share this with your friends. Thanks for watching. Again, I'm John with Electric Bike Report, and this is the Himiway A7 Pro.